Recording. All right, let's rock and roll. Hey, team, this is the Standard Podcast, and I am your host, Thomas Rowe, with my partner, Aaron Sarles. Today, we have Bruno with us. This is where we raise the bar, we rebuild the culture, and call out the lies no one else will. This isn't motivation. This is a movement. Again, Thomas Rowe with Aaron and Bruno. Corey is the director of NIL at Press Upload and one of the leading voices in athlete marketing and brand strategy. With over 3 years in the NIL space, Corey has worked with top athletes at Syracuse University, supported initiatives for Jim Boeheim and Carmelo Anthony's foundation, and built his career helping NCAA pro athletes turn their platforms into purposeful, ROI-driven brands through data-driven strategy and authentic storytelling. We're diving into the truth behind what it really takes to build an identity, discipline, legacy in sports and in life. All right, let's get into it. Right on. All right, team, we like to keep this to about 20, 25 minutes. We want to be respectful of Corey's time, as well as kind of just get through things to kind of keep you entertained, as well as give you some information that you could take away. All right, Corey, let's start here. What does raising the standard mean to you, especially in the NIL and athlete branding space?
So, to me, working in this industry, the number one thing to raise the standard is to always think ahead. It's a constantly, revolving door of new laws, new deals, new players, all entering the industry. So you have to think ahead, what's going to work long term? What can I do to help? Right. And honestly, it's all about, building your career about purpose. If you're in it for the wrong reasons, you're going to get burned.
No doubt. And that pretty much goes for anything, wouldn't you say?
100%.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest lie? I mean, that's kind of a rough word. What is the biggest lie or the gray area where you feel the culture for the NIL industry is selling athletes right now?
I think the number one lie, I don't know if I would say it's a complete lie, but the majority of time people think, hey, I'm going to a top school, say Oregon for football, Ohio State for football, Duke for basketball. Automatically, I am one of the most valuable athletes there or in college, right? Right. So you may have a ton of pedigree on the court, on the field, be an absolute beast in your sport, be a 5-star recruit. But when you're talking to brands, they don't care about how good you perform on the field. A lot of NIL right now is data-driven. So, I'm going to look more so at how well you can market my product rather than how well you can compete. Some of the top followed athletes right now are, D1 players who don't get playing time, JUCO athletes showcasing their journey. And I think the number one, I just say the overarching theme is no matter where you are in the industry, you can do it. It's all about being authentic and being yourself, and you can make a legitimate business out of, yourself and your own personal brand.
No kidding. How much time do you think some of these athletes spend putting together because I've seen them where it's follow my journey, I'm a D1 football player, follow my journey, I'm this. How much, do they just have the camera in their hands 24/7?
It definitely varies from case to case. I think when you're in season, it's a lot harder to post if you're just doing it yourself.
Sure.
So, you may see only one video per month, but some of these guys who ride the bench and they're literally making their living through content. They're at it every single day grinding, an hour or two editing videos, making sure, I'm working with one athlete right now, works a 9-to-5 job during the day. He's up at 5 a.m. running on the track. He's recording his workout. He records his recovery throughout every single session. So it's building those habits. And for some of them, it could be 3-4 hours a day total between recording and editing your content. So it can pretty much be a second job if you really think about it, on top of all the pressure that you already have on top of being an athlete and a student.
Right. Holy cow. It's a grind. I mean, look at you as an entrepreneur and look at us. How have you seen that live play out with some of the athletes that you're currently working with? And what truth do you believe needs to replace it?
So what do you mean in terms of?
Like, is there an athlete that I think that you kind of hit on it because this is new information. When you think of a D1 athlete as a starter, you think they're kind of making millions. You hear about this quarterback at Michigan, right, that is making $10 million. But then you're telling me there's these guys, they're riding the bench, they're making a lucrative living. So I guess what my takeaway is, what's the lie? Just because you're a D1 athlete and you're a starter doesn't mean you're going to get the lion's share of the money.
Yeah. Brands may not want to work with you because you're not showing yourself on social media. I'll give you a good example of that of a girl who we worked with Arizona State. So the thing about Arizona State, humongous, 600 plus student athletes, a lot of revenue in football and basketball for them. So she actually dropped the partnership today on social media, but GoDaddy came to Arizona State and they partnered with 4 athletes out of over 600. So we worked with this client, female lacrosse player in a non-revenue driving sport. You wouldn't think of her as the prototypical type A athlete that they would pick for something like this. A little less than 10,000 followers total on social media. But what we helped her do is we helped her market herself as a holistic person outside of just athletics. So, she's also a founder to AI company, right? That does performance-driven dieting for athletes out there. So we showcased her as a founder, working internships over the summer, all encompassing just, absolute beast. Like, she started on the lacrosse team as a freshman. She's a founder of a company. She's working an internship in engineering. Like, she's legit. So GoDaddy ended up picking her as one of 4 athletes, which, I think really speaks to the power of social media. And like, if you put yourself out there in your story, brands will see it and they'll want to work with you.
That's pretty impressive. Nice job. Welcome back, Aaron. We just finished up segment 1, so I'm going to turn it to Corey. We're going to tag team you. You're going to get it from both sides. So I'm going to turn the table over to Aaron. It's all you.
I'm sad I missed the first part, but excited to jump in here. So Corey, share with us, you help athletes build brand and monetize their platforms beyond the deals and the content. How do you help athletes understand who they are beyond that? And then how would you define character, integrity, and discipline in the work that you do?
I think the number one thing to understand athletes is just talk to them like real people. Like, a lot of people don't understand that in this industry, athletes have so much else going on besides sports. They're humans too. Mental health is there. Sometimes they have to work jobs to support their family. A lot of pressures on the line for a lot of athletes. And, the more you can just understand that, the easier it is to work with them. So I guess to answer your question, helping them understand their brand. So number one, not just creating content and doing it for them, but, what does your schedule look like from week to week? Like, what times are you training? How can we best integrate what you already have going on into making it you, instead of just saying, record X, Y, and Z, go out of the way, put all this pressure on top of you. We'll take your lifestyle, and then we'll turn that into the journey and make it a reality for you on social media. And then to answer the second part, where the purpose lies, is I think just being yourself and being authentic. Everyone has a story. Everyone has different goals in mind. I'm working with one college athlete who's building a training business, another one who's building a recruiting business, another former WNBA draft pick who's showcasing her journey from overseas back to the W, a G League player who's a real estate agent on the side. Like, everyone has their own journey. So, the more authentic it is to them, the more purpose that they're going to get out of it. And I think the more engagement they're going to get too on social. Like, you're doing the right strategies. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're putting out what works, but just making it authentically yourself.
I love that. Yeah, I think showcasing the whole person, which I think sometimes gets missed. So that's awesome. What's one truth you wish every athlete understood about NIL branding or something that lasts?
So I think one truth is just what you have to differentiate yourself. You have to build a social media brand, or, you know, you're not like the supply and demand right now for brand deals is insane. Like outside of just working with athletes, we'll work with brands as well, and we'll build them NIL campaigns, data driven. We'll help from point A to point B to build out a really strong influencer marketing campaign for them using college athletes. And the supply, like I'll put out one deal, the payment may be a couple $100. I'll have over 100 athletes trying to get that one deal, all their agents in there, right? And then out of that pool of 100 athletes, 90% of them aren't even posting content on social media, right? All I know is what school you play for. Maybe you're a recruit in high school, but what are you going to bring to the brand to market them? So to really get those brand deals and those strong partnerships, A, it's having that social media presence, and B, it's just open to promoting companies. Like, make sure you're getting paid. Make sure, it's not, hey, like, use this code in my bio and I'll give you commission. Like, you don't want to be a sales rep for the company, but, get experience, build a portfolio, build some deals, do it in organic content, because that's what brands really appreciate. Don't read off a script, but make it just flow into what you already have going on. So, that's what's really going to set you apart to getting brand deals and building your brand, taking it to the next level. So, no matter where you are, even high school, like, start now. This is the new world. No one's going to give you shit for it. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. There's a lot that goes into it, and it sounds really easy, but there's so much more to it than I think the illusion of what we're given as far as NIL, or we have the illusion of the NIL is like just these big dollars, that go to like the Arch Mannings with Warby Parker, which that's the anomaly.
That's what we talked about as you stepped away. We were talking about some of these athletes that just because you play for your starter on a big D1 school doesn't mean you're going to get all the NIL, simply because one, you're super busy with doing your sport, but two, Corey was talking about some of these athletes that are on the bench, they're just basically highlighting their journey. And I think a lot of people can relate to that because, when I look at a Division I wide receiver, I'm like, this guy must be a superhero. But, you look at the guy on the bench and he's relatable, right? You're like, oh, okay, he's just, an everyday Joe. Whereas you look at these starters at Oregon and Michigan as just superheroes. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead. We just kind of got off on a little tangent.
No, I love that. Go ahead.
And that anomaly of athletes like the Arch Mannings of the world, the Ryan Williams, Keon Anthony now entering his first year at Syracuse, those superstars are always going to attract the brand. But for the 99.9% of athletes, it's what makes you different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say the Warby Parker thing is really catchy for Arch Manning. So
that's a cool partnership. I like that.
It is. I love it. It tells the kind of his story and kind of his dad. And I don't think his mom's in that one, but I think it's a nice way to weave, I think, who he is more versus just the quarterback.
Yep. Hey, Corey, if you could give advice to a high school athlete just starting out to think about their brand and NIL opportunities, what advice would you give them?
I think, you look at high school kids, it's what do you want to achieve in your life beyond just your sport?
Bingo.
Right? If you say, hey, I want to make it to the NFL one day, okay, well, what if that doesn't work out? What's plan B? A good plan B in today's world is building up your journey on social media, because it gives you so many more routes to now monetize your brand while keeping the sport a part of your life. Say, I want to be a football trainer. Right. So many training businesses are now social media driven. It's the number one marketing tool that you can have, your own personal brand. If you build up your personal brand, show you're legit, show your training over the years. Now, maybe I'm not making the NFL. Maybe I'm still playing college football. I can get some money on the side with a hustle like that, right?
Sure.
So it goes beyond like, hey, like if you're not looking to keep sports a part of your life, even beyond graduation, there's still ways that you can build your brand to help you out while you're in college. That's going to, put your voice out there, your personality out there that can still take you to the next level of being career-driven professional.
Sure. What about a college athlete who's in the middle of an NIL game right now, trying to figure out how to navigate deals, content, and staying authentic and relevant?
I would say the number one thing is just to talk to people who are trusted in the industry and, make sure they're legit. I think the number one thing right now in sports is everyone's going to scam you. Everyone's going to rip you off. Everyone's going to take advantage of you as an athlete. You see it too much in the news. And, don't be afraid to ask questions to people who can legitimately help you along for a long run and be a part of your team. You're an athlete, you have so much going on yourself. So, just try to learn about it from different perspectives.
Right.
Don't be afraid to take advice. And number one, just don't be ashamed of where you are in the industry. Like if you're playing D3 football, just be like, no one's going to care about me because I'm a D3 athlete. People still care. A lot of D3 players. One of these guys, I'll shout him out because he's just a beast. This guy, Richie Murphy, he was a D3 football player, 5'7" cornerback from Wisconsin. And he literally just has been posting since high school. And gritty dude, showed the behind the scenes of D3 football. Now he's a full-time content creator while he's playing in the Arena Football League, a league that barely pays it, much, but he's getting all that money from social media, so he can make football a reality.
He carved out his own little niche, didn't he?
Exactly.
All right. Lastly, for this block of questions, I'm sure you could see the trend now. We're getting into pro athletes or those that are transitioning out of their playing careers. How should they be thinking about their brand identity, or how should they differentiate it when you're leaving the pro sport?
I think on social media, honestly, a lot of the strategies can be replicated from what works in college. I'm showcasing my authentic life. I think it's a little bit untapped in pro sports. You don't see an XFL player do that. A lot of them do that. You don't see the NBA G League players do that. Even WNBA, if you can really make yourself marketable on social media, that puts you apart. That will bring you in more brand deals. And sports is a business.
Yeah.
More money that you can bring into a team, that's an intangible. That can make up the last 3 roster spots on the team. You could be one of 3 just because you can bring them X, Y, and Z number of eyes, whether it be TV, whether it be social media. What else can you bring? So.
Well, when we first met, it makes me think about how we talked about how a lot of pro athletes, they've spent a lot of their high school years and their first couple of years in college becoming the best point guard, becoming the best linebacker, right? Mm-hmm. And then they spend 2 or 3 years in the league, and then it's over. The phone stops ringing. So you could actually make a transition from pro sports, from the playing field to the corporate field, right? And that's a lot more relatable, because how many people actually play professional sports? 1%, less than. So to make that transition. So I think that, if I don't want to put words in your mouth, it sounds kind of like ego. If these pro athletes put their ego aside and say, look, I'm done. My playing career is over. Now I've got to transition. And that's relatable.
Even some of these jobs in sports, especially sports media, I mean, you look at the trend that it's been going, Jason Kelsey is now one of the top voices in the NFL. He was a great player. Right. But what really put him apart is he had a podcast, right, with his brother. And he has a bona fide voice. Everyone knows his name because of that. He's an offensive lineman. How many offensive linemen can most people name in the NFL right now?
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
So I think even these sports media jobs where you can stay around your sport, a lot of it will be in, you'll see a trend of these influencers getting it just because they have that voice. They have that phone.
Right on. Aaron, I'm going to turn it over to you. Go get them.
Okay, it's my turn. Now it's a rapid fire round. So I'm going to say something, and then you're just going to finish my sentence, Corey.
Cool.
So discipline equals
Success.
leadership equals
Following.
faith equals
Trust. I feel like I'm on
legacy. Legacy equals
What was that last one?
legacy.
Legacy. Purpose.
What's one thing you would never compromise on?
I think one thing I would never compromise on. That's a good question. Maybe it's a tough one. I think honesty to people, especially in this industry.
I love that. Yeah, people need that. What's one message you'd put on a billboard for the next generation of athletes?
Let's see. Be yourself, and or maybe don't be afraid to be yourself. As corny as it sounds. Yeah.
Right on. All right, Corey, before we wrap up, is there something we didn't touch on today that you feel athletes at any level need to hear about NIL, branding, or building something real?
I think in terms of building something real, one thing is just don't be afraid to hit the upload button. That's the name of our company is Press Upload, because it's what a lot of athletes don't do. So we help them do that. So, never be afraid to just hit the upload button, be creative, think about the value, or don't shy away from the value and, inspiration that you may bring to others, because truly everyone has a story. Everyone's been through a path, and especially for athletes, they are the most inspirational people in society. When you look at who people follow, when you look at who people look up to, I think now everyone looks up and kids say, hey, I want to be a social media influencer. Like that's where a lot of kids come from nowadays. But besides that, it's athlete. Like I want to be an athlete when I grow up. So what can you give to the world in your sport? And just no matter what you're dealing with, injuries, lack of playing time, transferring, other people can relate to that. And, they'll love you for just being yourself and not only being a voice for the community, but inspiring them to, get to the next level and, be there for their journey.
Yeah. Well, I was today years old when I realized what press upload means, because that makes total sense, because so many kids, even adults, that are afraid to hit upload, right? They're like, someone's going to think this about me. Someone's going to think this about me. What Aaron and I try to tell them is like, real talk, no one really gives a shit about what you're doing unless you do something great, unless you do something egregious, right? Like, we don't need to get into the politics, but when you look at something like Mark Sanchez right now, it's cringing. You're like, and that wasn't even social media, but that's going to come back to haunt his career. But that has nothing to do with social media. So if you do something on social media and post it, that could jeopardize your career for sure.
100%. And even I was working with one of these swimmers from LSU that's been working with us for a while, and he's been through 2 Olympic trials right now. He's young. He's a senior right now. He's 21, 22 years old. So he's going to try out for the next Olympics. And I think what put him over the edge to actually start posting what I said, looking back one day, with your kids, with your family, you could look back and document this whole journey, whether you made it or not, right? So say you don't make it to the Olympics, you can see all the hard work that you put in, right? Inspire the next generation of swimmers. Say you do make it to the Olympics, all eyes are going to be on you representing Team USA. Everyone's going to see your journey. You are going to be rolling in brand deals, rolling in sponsors, rolling with people who want to be a part of that.
Right.
So, no matter it's the high road or the low road, it's all beneficial.
It's about rolling the dice, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. So where can people connect with you and learn more about the work that you do? So your social media, go ahead and throw that out there, your website, anything?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn, just by name, Corey Bruno. shoot me a message if you ever need help in the NIL industry. Any advice, if you're an athlete, would love to talk more about your journey. And then social media too, you can check out some of our work there at Press Upload. And if you ever need anything, don't be shy to message me. I'm always open to new ears, new conversations.
Right on. Corey, thanks so much for your time. I'm going to kick it over to Erin. She's going to close us out.
Yes, thank you for sharing your story with us and all your insights. It's invaluable. If this conversation inspired you, challenged you, wanted you to get into action, hit press upload, we ask you to do two things. Share this episode with anybody that needs to hear it. Any athlete navigating NIL, a parent trying to guide their kid, a coach helping their players build their brand. Please connect with Corey on LinkedIn. That's how we found him. He is an amazing resource and he is very responsive. So find Corey Bruno. His name will obviously be on the show so you can find him easily, and he's here to help. And if you are an athlete, parent, or coach ready to raise your standard, check out Blueprint to Blue Chip at blueprintbluechip.com. We help athletes build identity, discipline, and legacy that goes beyond the game. And if you have 30 seconds, not 5 seconds, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps us reach more athletes, parents, and leaders who need this message. This is the Standard Podcast, and this movement only grows when we raise the standard together. Talent fades, but truth endures. Raise the bar, rebuild the culture, become the standard. Until next time, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Erin.